Bessie Smith, the world's greatest blues singer, also known as the Empress of the Blues. I will be showing records from the 78 RPM that started it all up to reissue 78's modern LPs and CDs. We will be discussing the music. I will have some video clips, some sound clips. We will be talking about the primary book that was her biography, and other information. Also included will be a little information about the blues era, which is mostly unknown to people today, which is where she was the star.
My man treats me mean. I regret the day that I was born and that man I ever seen. My happiness is less today. My heart is broke, that's why I say, Lord, a good man is hard to find. You always get another kind. Yes, when you think that he's your pal, you're looking fine and fooling around some old gal, then you're raised. You are crazy. You wanna see down in his grave. So if your man is nice, take my advice. Hug him in the morning, kiss him at night. Give him plenty love and treat your good man right. For the good man nowadays sure is hard to find.
A good man is hard to find. That's not really a blues. Of course, all of the tunes in the era were often done in a blues manner. Here is a copy of the original sheet music published by Pace and Hendy from 1918, featuring Sophie Tucker on the cover. Yes, the white women on the stage in Broadway started introducing these tunes, and they are one of the things that made it possible for what came later. One of the reasons I used that clip of A Good Man is Hard to Find, because the sound quality is quite good, and I wanted you to get a little idea maybe what Bessie might have sounded like. We're going to get to the blues.
Everything all right, Bessie?
Yeah, as soon as y'all move this thing out the way. Gee, but it's hard to love someone when that someone don't love you. I'm so disgusted, heartbroken too. I got those downhearted blues.
In 1923, Bessie stood in front of that big wooden recording horn at Columbia Records, and this record was the result. At least it was the first one issued. Downhearted Blues with Clarence Williams on piano. Flip side, Gulf Coast Blues with Clarence Williams on piano. Here is the original sheet music from those recordings. Downhearted Blues. Bessie never made it to the cover of that piece of sheet music. But on the right, there's Bessie, Gulf Coast Blues, composed by Clarence Williams, the pianist on her recording, and published by Clarence Williams Music Publishing.
Preach them blues, sang them blues, they certainly sound good to me.
That clip was from HBO's special HBO Live, Bessie. In my opinion, it's an outstanding movie. It got mixed critical reviews because that's what critics have to do. It wasn't a documentary. It wasn't a biography. It was a made-for-TV movie. It was a fictional account that had numerous actual events that took place in Bessie's life and was based loosely or at least some information taken from it from the book Bessie by Chris Albertson. I think it was an outstanding movie. It was an entertaining movie. The music was very enjoyable. And for you folks and friends in the vinyl community who may not have all that much interest in Bessie's music, watch this movie. It is entertaining. You can stream it, you can download it, you can watch it for free on HBO Live. I actually purchased the video. I liked it so good so that I could re-watch it again and again. My only most minor criticism would be is the very ending of the film is a kind of a Hollywood ending. If I had done it, I would have had the end the way the end really come in a fatal car crash. But it was a nice sentiment they left, and I highly recommend watching this video. Queen Latifah portrayed Bessie in the movie, and I think she did an outstanding job. She also did a good job singing the music and was very realistic. Another aspect of the film is that a lot of people would enjoy. I think it gives us at least some kind of representation about what life was like after World War I in these communities and the beginning of the jazz age, which was the beginning of American popular music. So just for that aspect alone, the film is worth watching. Highly recommended. Bessie, Chris Albertson. The best biography available, according to Newsweek. When this came out in the early 70s, it was really the only biography as such that had been written by then, and several other books have been written since, but this is the book. This is a later paperback edition. The paperback editions are still available at Amazon, and even the first editions, hardbound, aren't priced too high on eBay, fairly easy to get. This is really her biography, and it's an interesting read. So if you're interested in finding out more, that's the book to get. At about the same time, Chris Albertson, the author of that book, in conjunction with Gunther Schuller, some of you will recognize his name, they did a softbound book, and it says here on the back, the greatest singer and entertainer of the century. And I believe that's true, even though today she's maybe not very well known. So the first number of pages here, nearly 30 pages, will be information from the other book, The Bessie by Chris Albertson. He wrote the foreword. And then Gunther Schuller did the music with guitar tabs also, so you guitar guys can play this. This is simplified versions of the music. But one of the interesting things about this is a good book because you almost have the biography, and you also have the music for those of you who are musicians. One of the things you may not be aware of here, for example, Backwater Blues, written by Bessie Smith. She wrote a lot of the songs she sang. She wasn't just a singer and a performer. She was a composer, and she wrote quite good songs. Backwater Blues may be one of her biggest hits of stuff that she wrote, still being performed today about an event, I believe, and this was published in 27, and I believe that's when they had the big Mississippi flood. Devastated a lot of areas. So this is a good book to get. Starting in about 1940, Columbia Records started reissuing many of the Bessie Smith 78 RPM records. Hot Jazz Classics says this is album number 4. Bessie Smith, Empress of the Blues. Each one of these holds 4 records. One song, 78 RPM. Get that here sooner or later where you can see it. The records in this set were from 1925 to material issued in 1928. So we have 4 records. Nice slip case, took good care of them. These records in nice condition. If we did some careful listening here, I don't have a turntable that plays 78. I do have a Victrola orthophonic, but I don't want to play good records on that. Some careful listening, since these records go, the originals, from 25 to 28, we could probably listen and pick out maybe when the electrical recording took place, when they started using electrical microphones. But just like from the beginning, popular music, reissued. You want 78s? Yeah, the originals of a lot of these Bessie 78s would go for big money. But you could get these reissues for a modest price. This set of 4 reissue records from 1940 goes for, if you check Discogs, maybe $75 to $150, depending on the condition. But the originals would go for quite a bit more than that for each one if they were in good condition. So kind of fun to have something like this. It's a little link back. Over the years, a number of artists have paid tribute to Bessie. We don't see that much nowadays, but in 1958, Dinah Washington sings Bessie Smith. Original record, good record. 5 tunes on each side. Very enjoyable with Eddie Chamberlain and his orchestra. Of course, a modern record is going to sound good. The style is going to be a little more modern. And it's enjoyable and it's fun to have. My favorite from 1958, Laverne Baker sings Bessie Smith on Atlantic. This one's in one of those Blake sleeves, not going to get it out quickly, but the good thing about this record, it's just recently been reissued, and it's available from Amazon right now. This record is excellent. I like Laverne Baker. Her sound is much more sympathetic to the sound of Bessie back in those days, and she has a nice group with her. And if I was just going to pick one of the 3, this is the one I would get. And the fact that this has just been reissued makes it easy to get. The other one in this group didn't come out till 1973. The copy I have here is a repress in 1983. The songs of Bessie Smith, Teresa Brewer, Count Basie. This is a little bit interesting. I had the CD a long time ago. I wasn't crazy about it because back then this was fairly modern sounding. Big band arrangement on one side and then Count Basie on piano with a small group on side B. But my musical tastes have diversified over the years, and I listened to this the other day and I enjoyed it very much. Much more modern treatment of the songs, and yeah, Teresa Brewer's vocal style is about as far from Bessie as you could get, but she did a good job. It was very enjoyable. So here's just a few records where they paid their tribute to Bessie and did a whole album of tunes made famous by Bessie. So enjoy.
Once I lived the life of a millionaire, spending my money, I didn't care. I carried my friends out for a good time, buying bootleg liquor, champagne and wine. When I began to fall so low, I didn't have a friend and no place to go. So if I ever get my hands on $1 again, I'm going to hold on to it till the eagle grins. Nobody knows you when you're down and out. In my pocket, not one penny, and my friends, I haven't any. But if I ever get back on my feet again, then I'll meet my long lost friends. It's mighty strange, yeah, without a doubt. Nobody knows you when you're down and out. I mean, when you're down and out.
Columbia Records made a ton of money off of Bessie. She made the first recording there, as we've shown before, in February of 1923. It was said that Columbia was in financial trouble at that time, and basically she saved the company, and the money they made from the 1920s was a ton, and that propelled them forward into the future. Well, starting in 1970, they started issuing double LP sets to do basically the complete works. I've shown this cover before. Gatefolds, nice productions, lots of information. And this was the first one in 1970. I had all of these at the time, and I've only have 4 of them now. But the next one, Empty Bed Blues. Practically right up to this second, Columbia's making money off of Bessie's records. These records were reissued again sometime in the later 80s before records had died. No changes. They didn't try to improve the sound or anything. Same packaging. They just reissued the records again. So you vinyl guys, these are easy to get. I've seen a couple at my record store, and I don't remember. And these are nice, clean condition. They might have been like $5. You might even luck out and find one in the dollar bin. But these were popular records, and they made a bunch of them. So that's a little introduction into the vinyl LPs. This was kind of my introduction. So starting in 1970, I started picking up all of these records, and of course I listened to them, and then later on I got the CDs and listened to those. So that was really a lot of fun, and it's neat that you record collectors can pick up these ones from the 70s or the reissues of those from the 80s for a modest amount and have a little bit of fun. And of course, there's lots of information in the packaging, so have fun.
Tired of being lonely, tired of being blue. I wished I had some good man to tell my troubles to. Seem like the whole world's wrong since my man's been gone. I need a little sugar in my bowl. I need a little hot dog on my roll. I can stand a bit of loving, oh so bad. I feel so funny, I feel so sad. I need a little steamy on my floor. Maybe I can fix things up so they'll go. What's the matter, hot papa? Come on and save your mama's soul, 'cause I need a little sugar in my bowl. Doggone it,
Starting in 1991, Columbia Music, in their Roots and Blues series, started reissuing all of the Bessie Smith, the complete Bessie Smith, in 2 CD box sets with a really informative booklet that came with each one. They had one issued roughly each year until Volume 5 came out in 1996. Here's a look inside box 1. You can see the 2 CDs. To the right of it is the booklet, the same size as the box, and these are about 20 pages or so with pictures, lots of historical information, and all of the recording information. Here's a peek at the inside of the booklet for Volume 1, just to give you an idea of what that's like. Of course, there have been many other compilations and CDs issued over the year, some before this set, but if you're seriously interested, this is probably the set to get.
Well, Bessie was more than just a friend of mine. We shared the good times and the bad. Well, many years have since passed me by. I still recall the best thing I ever had. Now I'm going down the road to see Bessie. Oh, see her soon. Just going down the road to see Bessie Smith. And when I get there, I'm wondering what she'll do. If you're lucky one day, you will find out where it is that you're really coming from. Now I'm going down the road to see Bessie. Oh, see her soon. Just going down the road to see Bessie Smith. And when I get there,
Hopkins, Me and Bessie. She was pretty close to Bessie. This is the album from the Broadway show. First production was in Washington, D.C. in 1974. From there it moved to the big stage. One of the highlights of my musical life. I saw Linda perform this at the Mark Taper Forum in Los Angeles in 1975. It was fantastic. The show went on and was over a year in New York and was for many years the longest running single woman show in Broadway. It lasted 453 shows. At the Mark Taper Forum in Los Angeles. This was a relatively small theater, and the show included costume changes, some like you see wearing on the cover of the album. A good little band. They did a great job with the music, and dancers who performed dances of the period which added to the show. The show started out in a darkened auditorium, a spotlight over towards the side of the room. Up out of the pit came a theater organ console with Linda sitting at the console playing that Wurlitzer pipe organ and singing a gospel tune like she and Bessie started out with. It was the kind of thing that can make me emotional today when it happened. It puts goosebumps all over your body and makes the hair stand on end. This was a fantastic show. Maybe not unbelievable, but sorry. I have not been able to find any videos of this. But I do have a few videos that Linda did just a few years later so that you can get a little idea what it might be like. But this record is terrific, and that show was terrific, and didn't get good critical acclaim. The critics pick on this and they pick on that. They didn't like the story. It wasn't about the story, it was about the music. And the music was fantastic.
Come on, give me a feel like I wanna cry. You must be having a play or drink because it's bringing me down. Ain't got a rhythm. When he stumps his feet, that man sends me off my feet. Take your razor, take your gun, do the shimmy. Tell a wagon come, give me a big foot and a bottle of beer. Tell me 'cause I don't care. Do you hear what I tell you, honey? Sing me. Oh Lord, don't care.
If you just want a little listen to the music, get a little idea what it's like, you can get the MP3 downloads from Amazon. If that's your only interest, there's no reason to do any more than that. These were all taken from old 78 RPM records. The audio file sound is not going to be very good at best. And of course, a record is not going to sound better than a CD. But the primary purpose of this video is for the vinyl community and record lovers. So I'm going to show two records, talk about them a little bit, that will give you a choice if you want to get this music on vinyl. Bessie Smith. The Rough Guide to Blues Legends. This is a UK production from 2014. They've been doing a number of different rough guides, guitar, blues, various kinds of things, and they're doing a fine job. This is available on Amazon. It's available on eBay. It's easy to get. One record, 180 gram, which doesn't really matter. Has 6 tunes on each side, has a good variety of the music. Again, these things are taken from 78 RPM records, and the record that they had access to when they did this, the better condition, the better sound it was, the better sound you'll get on a track. And this is satisfactory. There's no booklet inside. You get this much note information. Of course, all the knowledge in the world is on the internet if you want to look it up. One of the things, a benefit here, includes a bonus download card, which has extra tracks over what's on this album, and then another whole album for free. I think the title was Blues Divas or something, and it's going to have a bunch of other people on up to even more modern people that did Bessie Smith tunes. So another whole album of MP3 downloads for free. That makes this a good value. My preference would be this record. This is a 2 LP set from the EU. When this first came out, after I watched the video Bessie, I thought maybe there would be a soundtrack on vinyl, and I thought this was it. This was, I ordered from Germany. You can get it now on Amazon. But like a lot of these things, pressed in the EU, and it maybe takes a year or so before they make it over this country. I mistakenly, my mistake, nobody else's, thought that this was going to be the soundtrack of the movie. It wasn't. This is a double LP set of Bessie. It's a gatefold. So it has about the same amount of information as the other one had. Advertises on here, promotes original recordings, remastered, direct metal master cutting. I don't know that that has any significance at all when we're talking about there weren't original master tapes. So it's all dependent upon the source material, and the source material varies greatly. But overall, they did a better job with this. The music is better sounding, and maybe not in a large significance, but this record is about double what the other record is. But if you're a vinyl guy, I would pick this record. One of the things, a little information here. Her first record was February 1923. Those are all acoustics. They sang into a big horn. The last one on this record was 1933. But in, I think, 1931, Columbia canceled her contract in a depression. But the point being is the first Victor electrical recordings, which weren't very many issued, were in 1925. So when did Columbia go to electric microphones in their studio? Well, I didn't research that. We don't know when and exactly which record would have been recorded this way and that way. But on this record, they're in the order that they were recorded. So when you get down about this far, you're up to 1927, and we can pretty much assume by 1927, most, if not all, of these recordings were using electric microphones. So you got a lot more signal on the disc, and you got a lot better sound quality. Her biggest hit later on, Nobody Knows You When You're Down and Out, 1929. Definitely electrical recording. It sounds excellent, and one of the things when they're programmed like this, you listen to this last record, you're getting all later recordings that were electrical recorded, and the sound quality is a lot better. So I think you will enjoy that more. I listened to her first recording, Downhearted Blues, and I enjoyed it. The blues era began shortly after the turn of the century. In 1909, the first piece of music was published that the subtitle was The Alabama Blues, where the word blues was used in that manner. Jelly Roll Morton had reported that he heard his first blues in about 1904. We could say the academic world recognized the blues era as starting in 1912. That is when the first four well-known pieces of sheet music blues were published, and so that's where a lot of the history writes about the start. The first jazz blues recording, 1917, and the Bessie Smith recording done in 1920, and Bessie's recording in 1923. 1923 was the heyday of the blues era. The most pieces of sheet music published were published in the year 1923 and declined after that period. And by 1927, Bessie was back on the road trying to make a living. So in my judgment, the blues era, where the blues was one of the most popular music in America and around the world, was from about 1909 to 1926. Since the early 1960s, all of the roots of the blues, the articles, the history written, have been kind of distorted. Why is that? Well, in the early 60s, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, they brought some of the old black blues guitar guys out which was great, resuscitated some of those guys' careers, but they saw the link to rock and roll more to those guitar players, and the young academics writing books on history, they were rock and rollers, so they saw the links to the guitar players to rock and roll. And so very much of the history since then has been focused on that, which is fine, but it is obscured, if not left out, the real roots of the blues and the time when it started. So if I ask you who was one of the most important early blues guitar guys, a lot of you would say this: Robert Johnson. 2 CD box set here, his complete recordings. These were recorded generally around 1936. Robert Johnson was born in 1911. When Bessie Smith made her first recording and was setting the world on fire, Robert Johnson was only 12 years old. And so the blues era had been over by nearly 10 years when Robert Johnson made his first recording. Here's a Columbia Roots and Blues 4 CD box set, retrospective 1925 to 1950. Well, when their retrospective starts, the blues era was almost over. And I don't see Bessie on here, nor any of the other early singers. There are a few of the later lady blues singers in here, and there's a few piano players, but primarily this series is all guitar players, which is fine. But if you got this box set, you might think this is what it is, but this was just one little part of it. Here's another 4 CD box set. The Blues, Classic Blues Singers, Volume 1. I don't see a single female singer on here. These go up into the course of the later guys, Howlin' Wolf and so forth. Yeah, these people were classic blues singers, but this leaves out all of the classic blues singers that actually made blues famous and popular. Again, great music, great recordings, but just another example of the distortion in blues history caused by rock and roll. Is there any good news in this part of the story? Yes, there is. 4 CD box set, The Blues, put out from Sony by the Smithsonian Collection of Classic Blues Singers. This is a real representation of the blues era, almost from the beginning to the end. So if you have enough interest to get something, get this one. You'll get the whole story. Early on here, Blind Lemon Jefferson, of course, one of the famous guitar player blues guys, but then we have Ma Rainey, Bessie Smith, Sippy Wallace, Sarah Martin, Barbecue Bob. We have some of the jug band groups in here, Charlie Patton. Right on up, when we get down to disc 4, we got Howlin' Wolf, and then a few later we got Buddy Guy, Lightning Slim, Otis Rush, Ray Charles. So you get the very beginning of the blues in this set with a nice variety of not just the heavy-duty guitar playing, singing blues guys, but all of the aspects of that. And so this is a great 4 CD set, highly recommended. And of course, all of these sets come with information. I didn't show that in any of the other sets. Here's the book that comes with it. So you get a real history of the blues in the Smithsonian collection of classic blues singers, not the distorted one, which is mostly what's been presented over the years. So I hope didn't make anybody too upset with this, but I just wanted to clear the record a little bit. In 1929, Bessie Smith appeared in a short feature. It's easy to see that on YouTube, on the internet. It's about 15 minutes long. I've not included anything from it here because I don't want to think or remember of Bessie like that. In my opinion, the role in the movie St. Louis Blues, a short film, is kind of sad and demeaning. By then, her career had gone south. We were getting ready for the Depression, and of course, she would make a film like that to make a couple bucks. That's not the Bessie I want to remember. I want to remember this Bessie. I want to remember the Bessie up there on the stage in the sequin gown, bringing the house down. See, Bessie was quite a woman. She was quite an entertainer. She was really the Madonna, the Lady Gaga, the St. Vincent of her day. She was a special person, and this is the picture I have in my mind of Bessie, not the one portrayed in that short film.
Like I say, I ain't Bessie. Bessie piled into a truck on a dark and narrow road in Mississippi and left a lot of her blood on that road and the life at a hospital where she died. She was buried with no stone or no marker, not for years, and no one to sing over her. But I guess now she has a marker. Well, now she has someone to sing over her. I ain't Bessie. Trouble, trouble, oh Lord, is living on my doorstep. Sadness, so much sadness is evermore beside me. Lord, lift my burden. Please hear me when I pray. Oh, because trouble, no, it just won't, my Lord, it won't go away. Ooh, oh, my Father. Ooh, nighttime, nighttime, daytime, daytime, oh Lord, my trouble